The Crow comic book adaptation starring Brandon Lee, who has actually died during the making of this film. In a tragic mistake during a shootout scene, another actor used a gun that unknowingly to him and mistakenly was actually loaded with a single real bullet, and he shot Brandon, who died as a result. The film was nonetheless finished with the remaining scenes of Brandon shot using trickery, at the time state of the art technology, such as superimposing his face on the body of a double. Something that's not very special today, but was a first back then. So the movie was a precursor in that category, however sad the reasons. Back to the film though. It's set in Detroit, or more specifically in a gothic, dark version of Detroit where there's always night and there's always rain. The setting looks much like Gotham from Tim Burton's Batman. The film opens on Halloween and shows us the result of a citywide chaos and arsons during the night. A young couple is found dead in their apartment with no real clues as to what happened to them. An open and shut case for the police. A year later, the guy that was killed, Eric Draven, rises from his grave, fueled by mystical powers of the titular crow. He's apparently completely invincible now, and this magical crow accompanies him. And as soon as Eric remembers what happened, he puts on some face mask to cover his features and goes on a killing spree of revenge, finding the people responsible for the deaths of himself and his fiancée and murdering them one by one. So the film is essentially, if you took Batman and made it with a heavy 1990s edgy filter. Like, it's almost funny how much of the stuff that we associate with that decade made its way into the film. Leather outfits, grunge and rock music, dark characters with raspy voices and long hair, sword fights, katanas, weird Asian rituals, brutal scenes of murder, and that overwhelming atmosphere of nihilism. The Crow has it all in abundance, to the point that it sometimes is ridiculous. Like, I can sort of accept the many, many scenes featuring the grungy music of the time, and the fact that some of them are actual scenes of bands performing in the film, which do not move the plot one bit. But then we find out that the main character was also a musician when he was alive, and at one point he begins to walk around with a stolen electric guitar, which also serves no function to the plot, nor is it used for any other purpose than to play a sad solo once. However, once you get past the initial shock of what's going on, once you accept the style of the film, it is actually quite entertaining. The atmosphere is properly heavy, the action scenes are fun, the characters well defined and easy to follow. It is admittedly mainly revenge porn for teenagers from the 1990s, but at what it's doing, it is pretty decent. And even story aside, it's also somewhat impressive on a technical level. I already talked about the tricks used to finish the movie after Brandon Lee's death, but there's a lot more of that. The film uses miniatures in very clever ways for shots, especially wide shots of the city and the scene of the car chase. And maybe most importantly, it works great as an example of the sort of movies that were made in the 1990s that will never be made again. I mean, maybe we'll see another adaptation of The Crow sometime in the future. There's already been rumors about that happening. But I can guarantee it will be vastly different in terms of style and the feel of it all. This version is inherently connected to the decade it was made, and as such, serves as this great time capsule, as this great museum piece for anyone that's interested in how cinema changed and evolved over the years. I enjoyed it both for that and for what it is. I found it surprisingly engaging, and sure, a lot of ridiculous stuff happens, and it's not a great film, make no mistake, but it is enjoyable in its own unique way.